could be in the corporate world, could be as a entrepreneurs, for example. Just bear with me. Sorry, my son decided he needs to take part of this conversation. So, so what I'm saying today is that I'm just basically introducing myself, and I'm trying to basically do an intro on the topic for today. So today we're going to focus on resilience, and I was trying to give a bit of a context in terms of the different masterclasses that we've been hosting in conjunction with One Africa Forum. And I think the one thing that is important to share here is that these masterclasses, they aim to be very open, very transparent, very much let's use the opportunity to talk about real life examples, right? It's not just a theory, because the theory, anyone can read it. What I do like to do is have your participation. I like to ask you questions, and I would like you to ask me questions as well. And I will be as open and transparent as I can be and give you real life examples. So the topic for today is resilience. And I think resilience is one of those things that we all experience. We all go through something in life, and our resilience either get tested or we are forced to build on our resilience. Before I sort of give you my own take on what resilience means to me, does anyone want to have a go in defining resilience, or what do you think resilience is when someone says you are resilient? What comes to your mind when you hear resilience? Anyone?
Pushing through despite pushback.
Any others? Okay, we'll deal with just one, but in essence, resilience is that. Resilience is our ability to overcome obstacles. Resilience is our ability to, despite the adversities that happens in our lives, which will happen and will continue to happen, is how we deal with them, right? How do we, despite a big challenge, we get up and we keep going, right? So oftentimes people think that resilience, you are born with it. No, in my view, resilience it's a skill that you develop as you go through the different challenges in life, as you go through those different obstacles. And I think it's very important to reiterate that resilience is something that you keep on. It's almost like, how can I put it? It's like a top up, right? You go through a challenge today and you fall down, you get up and you keep going, and you think, oh, geez, that's it, I'm good. And then a couple of months later or years later, something else happens, and that resilience that you built gets tested. So for me, when I talk about resilience, I always use my life experiences as an example. So in my life, whether personal or professional, I've gone through a lot of instances where I felt, that's it, that is it for me, right? And then I realized that actually, I'm stronger than that. Actually, I can overcome that. Actually, there are certain things that have happened to me growing up that helped me build that resilience. I'll give you an example. For those of you that have come across me before, I've moved from London 2.5 years ago. Before that, I had moved from Lisbon to London, and I lived there 17 years. Before that, I was born in Portugal, but I lived in Guinea-Bissau and I lived in Cape Verde. I normally joke about it and I say, I'm such a gypsy. But bottom line though, all those challenges, I'll call it challenges, all those times that I was moving from country A to B to C and D and so on and so forth, I was developing this trait, this skill of overcoming something. As a child, you go into a country, new country, and you don't know anyone, you don't have friends. You have to, there's a lot that gets tested in your being, right? The other element of it, not just me, but my son, who I had to uproot him from the UK at the age of almost 4, right? So that in itself, when we have these conversations with my husband as to what are we doing? Are we doing something right? What are we doing to our child? We then switch completely and we look at the positive stance, which is actually it's making our son more resilient. It's making our son being able to deal with adversity, with challenges. Why? Because new school, new country, new school, new set of friends, a new teacher, a new environment. So all of that are things that it's a make or break for someone, whether you build that resilience or you don't, whether you stagnate, whether you move forward. And I think, Wendy, you said it best, is the ability to keep going, right? And we live in that space where it's all about you fall, but you keep go, 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 go. You're in a go, go, go mode. I say we live in that space, but I say that with a pinch of salt because not everyone is built that way. And not everyone is expected to build that way. But can everyone build that? Can everyone develop that? Certainly, I believe they can, right? If I was to use the example on my professional life, I'll say that I had to learn more about my level or my threshold of resilience when I moved to the US, and I inherited a couple of teams, people that already had their formed ideas about me and what am I going to come here to do. So I had to show that I was resilient enough to deal with being challenged by the team that I've inherited and knew me, didn't know anything about me, right? So I say all of this to say that this is just an example of something in my professional life, but every day my resilience get tested, right? Every time you get challenged by someone, being a senior person or junior person, it tests how you respond to it. There's a saying that I like to use when I'm talking about resilience, which is life, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So if you think about it, a marathon is something that you have to keep on going for many hours, depending how small or short it is, but you have to keep on going. It's not just I just run the 100 meters and I'm done, right? It's your ability, when you're getting close to the finishing line, you keep going. You might not get to the first, but you can get to the second or the third place, right? So that is how we should be looking at resilience in the whole spectrum of our lives, being personal or professional. I'm going to pause because I know we don't have any slides today, but I'm going to pause you in case there's any questions or if you want us to sort of deep dive into any of the items that I mentioned. Any questions from anyone? Or if you want to share an instance where you felt that your level of resilience was being tested or you had to build it.
Hi, Sonia.
Prince, is any? Hey, Wendy, go ahead. I was going to pick on Prince.
Yeah, I was giving everybody a chance before I raised my hand. I'm currently in it. Well, I'm a very resilient person, and my eldest and I have had this discussion many times that my level of being able to push through is much higher than the average person, which also makes me a bit tougher on those around me because, you know, if I can do that, then you should be able to do it. And I had to adjust my thinking after a discussion with her to say, this is what I can do, and this is my level of how far I can push myself. And to me, that's normal. Other people have their levels, and my end level is as hard for me as their end level is for them, regardless of how I rate their end level. And that was a bit of a wake up for me when she gave me that insight. And it was quite eye-opening, especially since I've just grown up having to be tough since as far as back as I can remember. But even with that now, currently, engaging with government. For my youngest, we have a very restrictive education policy, even for home education. And I call it my 12 seconds of insanity when I decided to engage with government and saying no, because the option at the moment is you either register and do it legally, or you don't register and you do it illegally. The problem is if you get found out, your worst risk is 6 months imprisonment. So I don't register. Yep, I'm not registered, and government knows that. I engage with them, and I said, I can't do what you want me to do. So let's talk. It was very risky on my side. I did speak to a lot of people before I did it. Not a lot, but informed people. But constantly I have that moment, why am I doing this? Because I need to study policy. I need to study the laws. I need to analyze why they want what they want. I need to do so much research, local, national, international, speak to people, read constantly. Look at things our country has signed up. And I have so many moments like, why didn't I just hide like the 95% other people? Why didn't I hide? I wouldn't need this level of resilience, this level of push through. You know, but it's a lesson in respecting other people, you know, and their level.
And that's what I was going to mention, right? I think you talk on a key topic. So thank you for sharing, Wendy. It's important to recognize that we are all in different stages of our lives, and also the way we are built, the way we deal with problems is very different. We are not expected to be the same. I also go through that same emotion of, but if I can deal with this, what is your problem? Why can't you deal with it, right? In not recognizing that, guess what? We are very different. Some people will take them a while to build on that resilience. Some people will never even build that resilience because they don't encounter the challenges that would test that kind of the resilience and whether they have it or not. But my key message here, you need to recognize it in you. And if you can, help others recognize that, right? Because the action to recognize our level of resilience or not is what will define us, right? And what I mean by that is that we will all have trigger points, right? Resilience is not just something that happens like that, and it's not, you don't get tested like, on every single thing that you do. It's certain things that will test it. It's not everything that we do that you will say, oh my God, they're testing my level of resilience. No, it isn't. But the exercise that you need to do, you as a person, is list down what are your trigger points. For me, my trigger points, it's on my leadership, my role as a leader, right? Trying to implement something, trying to grow some of my team members, trying to make them see the bigger picture, trying to make them develop their ability to have this helicopter view of the industry and of our firm. So I've listed my trigger points. I listed the things that will be like, oh my God, I need to, work on this. So have that exercise because it will help you in the long run, and then it will help you also deal with the consequences, which is what I'll share with you in a second, the implications of it. I think we're talking about it already with the show and tell, but I did make a list of things that I consider to be a huge impact in our lives, being professional or personal. Thank you, Wendy, for sharing. Anyone else wants to share before we move on to the impact that the resilience or lack of it has in our lives? Okay. So apologies once again, because I would love to share the slides with you, but maybe, Prince, what we can do, I can share them after our session, and then everyone can go through it and come back to me if you have any questions. So in terms of the impact, I think based on what I just shared and Wendy as well, one of the big things that happens when you don't have this level of resilience is that it's emotionally draining, right? Because it has a huge impact on your mental health. I usually say the lack of resilience causes a huge emotional damage in ourselves and the others around us, right? Always remember that the actions that we take will have an impact on others, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we are conscious of it, it does have an impact, good or bad, right? In this instance, the resilience, the lack of it, will have an emotional damage in ourselves and others around us. Not having resilience can also make you have this inability to see an opportunity, to see adversity as an opportunity, right? And I'll say that again. If something bad happens to us, right, we tend to immediately either throw a pity party or say, that's it, I'm going to get up and go. I'm going to work on this and I'm going to overcome this. And I think that's what Wendy was giving the example, right? For her, it's no choice. This is how she behaves. If something happens, that's it. I'm going to keep on going. But not everyone has that capacity. So one of the biggest misses when it comes to challenges and obstacles and adversity is that people don't take that as an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to shift gears, an opportunity to say, guess what? This is happening for me, not to me. And this is something that we hear Oprah say a lot. I don't even know if it's her saying, but she says that a lot. Think about and see all these obstacles as things that they're not happening to you, they're happening for you, right? So that is one big thing, is shift that mindset of, oh my God, this is happening to me. No, it's happening for you, and you're seeing it as an opportunity to get better, an opportunity to develop, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn something new, an opportunity to teach others. Always look at it as an opportunity to do and be something different. People that don't have this level of resilience or this capacity to be resilient, they often tend to be very inflexible in their thinking, the way they think. They're very, this is how it is, and very, what's the word, closed-minded, right? That's something that I've noticed in people that don't have that level of resilience that is needed to overcome obstacles. Naturally, it goes without saying, lack of resilience also causes a lot of anxiety and potentially depression, right? And anything that deals with our psychic, it naturally will have an impact, not just in our body, but an impact in our well-being. So that is why we have to learn to develop certain capacities to deal with certain things. And lack of resilience, when it comes to our well-being, can cause a lot of anxiety in the way that you deal with the challenges that are coming in your life. Remaining calm and composed is a skill on its own, right? I'll give you an example. This morning, just now, a couple of minutes ago, where I'm having these challenges with my computer, I can't share, or my son just popped up. If you look at me, I'm calm and composed. Why? Because panicking won't change anything. If I panic, I'm not being a role model. I'm going to give you the notion, I'm going to send the notion, the idea that, oh my God, I can't handle my stuff. Right? So that is a typical example that I use when things happen. How do you react to that? And I'm just giving you an example of something that happened a couple of minutes ago when my son popped up, when my computer was playing up, right? So all these things are real life examples of things that happens when you don't have a level of resilience. It doesn't need to be anything grand for you to test that resilience. I'd also say that lack of resilience can also have a social and professional impact on us. And I think I mentioned that earlier, right? I'm given an opportunity to move to the US to run a couple of teams. and to prove myself that I'm a good leader, I'm worth the investment that they made by bringing me from London to New York. Had I not had that level of resilience, emotional intelligence, I would have passed on a huge opportunity, which is currently working in a big center like New York. So always remember that the lack of these components, of these traits, of these skills can have an impact on your social life as well as your professional. And I focus a lot on the professional because people do not realize that when you come to certain level, when you come to certain roles, it's not the technical piece, because anyone can be taught anything. You can learn stuff. They look at your resilience, if you can persevere despite what's happening with you. It's your emotional intelligence, is your empathy with your employees. Those are the things that people look at, because any other trait, any other skills rather, can be developed. So remember these things, the soft parts that people don't focus on, they also play a huge part in you being given an opportunity or not in your firm. And then last two items that I want to mention is, and I think I just mentioned that, is the lack of emotional intelligence, right? The resilience and perseverance and emotional intelligence, all these three words, you will hear a lot about it because they are intertwined. The lack of resilience shows that you don't have emotional intelligence. And the lack of resilience can also show that you cannot persevere despite something. You cannot persevere despite being given a no a couple of times. So these three, they're always intertwined. And again, there's a specific masterclass for perseverance and for emotional intelligence. And I don't know if we are going to be running any of them in the near future, but we can talk about it with Prince and organize it. But last but not least, lack of resilience also it shows that you have an inability to handle pressure, inability to work under pressure. In my industry, we are fast-paced environments. I used to call it, like in investment banking, it's like a fast food in the financial services. If you don't have this trait of being resilient, you're not going to succeed, because it's an environment that operates under a lot of pressure, and it's not for everyone, and that is okay. As long as you recognize how you operate and whether you can handle certain things in certain situations, it's all good. But bottom line is that in whatever you do in life, you will face adversity and challenges, and your ability to overcome that says a lot about who you are. I'm going to pause here for any thoughts, reflections, and questions from anyone.
Is it something that can be
Sorry, you're breaking up.
2 years?
You're breaking up.
Or is it, sorry, I say, is it something that can be taught?
Oh, 100%. So I would say it's a combination, right? It can be taught to an extent in the same way that I'm doing it now. I can give you the theory. I can say, this is what happened to me, and this is how I developed it. But to me, the biggest work has to be done by the person, because my challenges might be very different to yours, and there will be, right? We might have some synergies and things that we face, like being mothers. We face a lot of similar challenges. Being professionals, we might face similar challenges, but there will be certain things that are very much your own challenges, your own experiences. So I would say it can be taught in the same vein that I'm doing it now, sharing my experience in the definition, but what you live is what's going to basically teach you, right? That is something that no one can teach you. That you have to experience it, and you have to develop it yourself by the experiences that you go through. I hope that helps.
Question: if you teach creative thinking to a child in a sense of, like my youngest and I would do what I call one-line drawing. So we don't say what the drawing is going to look like. Each person just does one line, and we just develop it. And I can see where she's going, and I'll mess it up to see, what she's going to reroute to, and how her mind is going to shift. And it's for me, it's also that creative thinking. Like if I'm going to get an obstacle, okay, how do I reroute? How do I reroute?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
also a way of instilling the idea of rerouting?
100%. And I'll give you an example. At work, a lot of people look at my industry, for example. They look at banking as, in the corporation, you have to operate in a particular manner. You have to follow the big machine behind us. But no, the big machines, they're also giving us a lot of freedom to think and implement changes within, obviously, the constraints of our industry. So that creative thinking that we can teach our kids and our youth, the same thing can happen in the corporate environment. We are given the freedom, right, to develop these traits. Another example that I'll give in my industry, when people think that, oh, corporations, we also have an entrepreneurship vein, but we call it intra, right? INTRA, entrepreneurship. I'm saying all of this to say that you are giving a lot of tools to develop these traits. And the best thing to do is do it at an early stage. And to your point, kids are taught things and, some they stick, others don't. But in the formative years, that's when a lot of these traits can be developed. And this is why I use the example of my son, right? Moving to the US, moving to a new country, new environment, that is developing his level of resilience, right? And it's something that at times is not as palpable. It's only when you go through it that you realize. And then there's a common thread on a lot of kids of expats or immigrants, however we want to call it. They go through so much that any other challenge that gets thrown at them is peanuts, it's nothing, right? So there is definitely value in doing that with kids, 100%. Thank you, Wendy. Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on to some of the tips on developing or building your resilience, right? And I think it's very much intertwined in the different things that we shared so far. But I've made it a list. It's not the extensive list, but those are some of the things that I tend to do, and I did in the different obstacles that I had to face. One of them, you need to learn to recognize your trigger points. And I think I mentioned that, right? I wrote a list of things I know for sure they will test my level of resilience, right? So do the same. Make a list, have a think on your personal life, on your professional life. What are the things that can happen that will test your level of resilience, right? That's a great help. When you develop this resilience, this emotional intelligence to deal with things and put yourself in someone else's shoe and seeing someone else's or taking into account rather someone else's view, you are developing a social competency, right? We often don't focus on that, but all these skills are helping you develop your social competency. How do you relate to people? How do you, when you are in a work environment, how do you network with people? Something as basic as that, which sometimes is a challenge for a lot of people to network. And also the other thing is exercise that muscle, right? So that it can help you be more flexible mentally. And I think I told you guys before that not having resilience can make you very closed-minded, very inflexible in your thinking and behavior and whatnot. So develop your mental flexibility by going through these things and developing your level of resilience. That is certainly something that helps tremendously. Learn the bad habits, right? Unlearn bad habits. Check yourself, right? Don't just assume that I am the way I am who I am, and that's it. Check yourself every now and then and look at the habits that you have. right? And be prepared to unlearn them, because sometimes those are our roadblockers. We have these habits that we think they are good and they're working for us, but they're actually not. Excuse me. So in the same vein that you are unlearning about habits, create space to learn new habits, right? So there's a saying that it's so important, especially in the professional world, that we are learning something new constantly. Make space for something new. Get rid of the things that don't matter and they're not bringing any benefits, and make space for new things, new habits, new teachings to come in. And develop your ability to be emotionally intelligent, right? In simple terms, the emotional intelligence will help you deal with the adversity. On top of being resilient and developing this skill set, when you are emotionally intelligent, you have a bigger picture. You can see things at a very, very different rate. I call it the helicopter view, right? Top down. You're able to see what is going on and you're not going to be blindsided. Have this with emotional intelligence, you can have the ability to look at your blind spots. They are blind spots, but if you are emotionally intelligent, you'll be able to recognize them even if you can't see them. So that's what I mean about you see your blind spots, right? So that is the key thing that I'll say, work on developing that emotional intelligence and seeing and taking into account other people's views and ways of thinking. Last but not least, something that I I I like and I want people to practice at all times, which is empathy, right? In everything that we do, practice empathy. That will help you develop your emotional intelligence. That would help you develop your level of resilience. That will help you look at perseverance as something that is a key component of your being, right? So empathy, we often talk about it, but we don't practice it. So being empathetic goes a long way. When someone is going through something, make sure that you take the time to understand what is going on with them so that you don't quickly, so there's not a window dressing. Someone is going through something challenging. Oh, I hope everything is okay. Yeah, yeah, sure. But then you say, yeah, but can you deliver this report to me tomorrow? How are you showing empathy if you're not giving someone the time to deal with something, right? You're just window dressing the problem. So in essence, empathy is something that is very key in whatever we do in our lives. I use empathy a lot in my leadership. In my leadership methodology. So the teams that I manage, I practice that a lot. So I say all of this to say what? In all of these traits that we have or that we are trying to develop, make sure that you know yourself. You know where your gaps are. You know where, what your triggers are. Do that work in yourself. And I think that will definitely help you build your resilience or develop it further, and making sure that you realize that, hey, it's not, like I said earlier, it is not a sprint. Challenges will continue to happen, adversities will pop up, but how react to them says a lot about you, right? So it's not about, it's not about, we're not a result of what we, what's the word, what we choose to do, but what we choose to be, in essence. And I stop here for any thoughts or comments or questions. And I thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about my take on resilience, and the experiences that I had that has helped me build my resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and to everyone in the room. I don't know, does anyone has any question for Sonia in terms of resilience? It could be out of personal experience or from what she has shared. If you have any question, please just raise your hand, or you may unmute your mic, and let's just have that share. And if you're not confident asking the question, maybe we still need to learn that as well in one of the master classes. If you're not confident asking the question, it's okay. You can just type it, or you can email it to us, and I'll be sure to forward it to Sonia, so she may just touch on it in our next class. Our next class is probably going to be our last class in this series of masterclass. This series, and so we will be talking about leadership essentials in our last class. I think that's the last we have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to mute for 5 seconds. If anyone has any question, we'll take the question. Otherwise, I have to let Sonia go. She had said it earlier. She has a couple of family responsibilities that she needs to do.
Mommy's duties.
Yeah, mommy's duties. So yeah, does anyone have any question? I see a couple of people in the room. So yeah, Mustard, Zizi, Paul, Wendy, yeah, you've been very active. Thank you. So, all right.
As usual, she's great. She's always contributing.
As usual. That's very good. Thank you, Wendy, for your contribution. So in the absence of any other question.
One more, Prince.
Yes. All right.
I read a lot, so forgive me. I was reading on a couple of years back a study on high IQ individuals and what actually leads to success. And there was a study on high IQ average, whether it's wealth, environment, etc., etc. And since then, I've read so much that I have to say and ask the question, and I've asked it of my daughter too, that resilience, that perseverance, that being able to push through seems to be a critical component over and above your IQ. That having an average IQ and a high level of resilience and perseverance is more valuable than having a high IQ. And it's often, because I belong to quite a few gifted groups for kids, and then I see it often, and parents are starting to realize that these children can't handle failure because they so seldom encounter failure. They're just born naturally able to do many things, and from a very early age, they do things well, and obviously much better than their peers. So, and I've seen a couple of panic comments from parents like, I need to teach my child to fail and persevere. What can I do? How can I set this up that they actually fail at something? And so if from a working perspective, would you agree?
100%. And I think I alluded to that earlier, right? That when people are being promoted, when people are being given the opportunity to lead something, to move into a new project, those are the traits that leadership look at. It's not the ability to complete that. It's not because, oh my God, you're a great project manager. Oh my God, you are good at doing some maths. No, that's an important skill to have. But things have shifted. And I think even teachers are recognizing that, right? That they need to add to the curriculum different ways of making kids learn other aspects that will be very important in their lives. So I'm seeing that in my current industry, in my current workspace. A lot of these things are the things that are being valued. And I think it's important for parents to remember, parents and anyone that is in the professional sphere, failure is not a permanent thing. Failure is not a permanent condition. Failure is part of your it's part of your journey and will be part of your journey. So there has to be a clear distinction that if a child is, oh my God, super smart and has an amazing IQ, that's just one thing, fine. But then if you don't have that social component, if they don't have the traits that we're referring to, the emotional intelligence, the ability to be, to persevere, the ability to be resilient when they get a rejection, you're setting them for failure, in my view. So let those kids experiment and fail, right? Let them get rejected. Let them get no's. So we've seen for a lot of privileged kids, and privilege can be, defined in different ways. But let's just go with the plain for privileged kids, that you always had everything. You always had a yes in whatever you wanted. When they grow up and they enter the workforce, they face a lot of challenges in dealing with the rejection. And a lot of industries, I speak for mine, can be quite cruel, right? And a lot of these kids, they don't resist and they give up. They go and do something else that they find it's a bit more light. So Wendy, I think it is something that should be worked on early on, because it will have a huge impact in our professional lives. And I'm seeing that. I'm saying from experience how I've seen kids that come from privilege and how they expect things to go their way. And when it doesn't, it's a huge challenge. So I'll say always have in mind for parents or anyone that will become a parent, failure, it's not a permanent condition, right? Failure is not a permanent condition. Things happen, and how you react to them says a lot about you and how you're preparing your kids. Like my son, we don't say yes to everything that he wants. And it's painful for us to say no to him. But you're not helping your kids or your kid if you are saying yes to everything they want, right? So all in all, remember to have a growth mindset. So failure and growth go hand in hand. If you don't fail, you're not going to be growing. And look at adversity as an opportunity, not as something bad that is happening to you, but rather something that will help you in future. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Any
you.
other questions or thoughts?
Yes. Are there any other questions? Does anyone have any question? Please, let's share. Okay, good. So in the absence of any other question, we want to call this class to a close. Want to say, bring it to a close. Want to say thank you very much, Sonia, for your time. We'll meet again, hopefully next week for our last class in this series. And then we can have, you actually said during your presentation just now that there are other classes that may be available. I think it was on resistance or something, or whatever they are.
Yes. Yeah.
Have those conversations and see how we can also make them available where possible. But
all right.
Thank you very much for.
Thank you.
And thank you. Such a
no really problem.
And yeah, no, thank you for your resources and your time and everything that you're putting out there. So to everyone, thank you for joining in. I want to say a big thank you again, and we'll be ending the class right now. So have a good day. Have a good morning, Sonia, and have a good evening to every other person, and even more.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Sonia. Thanks, Prince.
Cheers.
Thanks all. Cheers.